My name is Kelly. Today I turned 30. The party my friends threw for me was dazzling, filled with warm laughter. By all accounts, it should have been a happy scene. But my mind was elsewhere. This wasn't just some kind of celebration. It was the start of a carefully orchestrated social experiment. And today my younger sister Nicole was to be its subject. It all began a few weeks ago with a subtle shift in my daily routine and a single phone call. "Hey Kelly, do you have a minute?" Nicole's voice over the phone was sickly sweet. I knew that tone well, it always meant one thing: money. "What's up?" "Well, I have this friend who's starting a new business. It's a really promising investment. Would you be willing to put in a little money? Just a small amount, really." I sighed at the word investment. Whenever Nicole talked about investing, it usually meant a new designer bag or a trip abroad. "Nicole, did you manage to pay your rent this month?" "What? Why are you asking me that?" "Of course I paid it. Stop treating me like a child." I must have hit a nerve. Her voice instantly turned shrill and defensive. "I'm not lending you any more money. You need to start living within your means first." And I hung up. That might have been our last normal conversation. A few days later, I got a call from Erica, a mutual friend. She sounded completely worn out. "Kelly, I'm so sorry, but it's about Nicole," she said, hesitating. Erica confessed that she had lent Nicole $3,000. The moment she asked for it back, Nicole lashed out at her. She told me, "Only small-minded people obsess over money." But then, when I checked her social media yesterday, there she was, bragging about a brand new Chanel bag, one I'm sure she bought with the money I lent her. Erica's voice shook, more with sadness than anger. After I thanked her and hung up, I opened Nicole's social media account. There I found a version of my sister I barely recognized, her successful self. A picture of her sipping champagne in a luxury hotel lounge was captioned, "Boss Lady Weekend." A photo of newly purchased designer goods read, "Treat yourself, hard work pays off." The kicker was a picture of the Chanel bag in the passenger seat of a rental car, her hand on the steering wheel. "New ride, working hard." Her comment section was filled with clueless acquaintances showering her with compliments. "So cool." "I'm so jealous." But I knew the truth. Her closet was full of clothes with the tags still on, shoes never taken out of their boxes. She didn't actually want the things themselves. She was addicted to the act of buying things and to showing off those purchases for validation. It had gone far beyond vanity or extravagance. This was a pathological shopping addiction. And Nicole never missed a chance to insult me. "Must be nice, Kelly. You just sit at your computer all day and get paid. You don't have to work on yourself or meet people like I do." She always looked down on my work as something only boring people do, but she also knew I had built up a comfortable nest egg through diligence. Meanwhile, Nicole bounced from one part-time job to another. She'd find wealthy boyfriends drawn in by her looks and flashy behavior, or borrow money from friends. But as people started to see her true colors, they drifted away. With all her other options exhausted, I became her last target. These suspicions swirled in my mind until something happened that confirmed everything. One day, Nicole invited me out to lunch. When I returned from the restroom, I noticed my wallet, which was supposedly buried at the bottom of my bag, was sticking out. When I got home and checked, I realized nearly $300 was missing, though I hadn't counted it exactly before. That's when I decided I needed a plan to get to the bottom of this. And now tonight is my 30th birthday party. Just as I expected, Nicole made her move. She crossed the line. In the middle of my friends' laughter and conversation, Nicole deliberately called out, "Hey Kelly, sorry, but I'm going to use the upstairs bathroom for a bit, okay?" Those words were like the starting bell of the experiment, one that only I could hear. As I watched Nicole climb the stairs, I quietly pulled out my phone. To my friends, I was still the birthday girl at the center of the celebration. But with a single tap, I slipped back into my role as the cold, methodical observer. I switched the screen to a live feed from the extra camera I had set up in my bedroom. Nicole didn't even glance at the bathroom. Instead, she went straight into my bedroom and headed for the dresser. Her target was clear: my leather wallet. She grabbed it quickly, slid out my debit card, and snapped a picture of the front with her phone. Then she turned it over, carefully focusing to capture the security code on the back as well. Every bit of this digital theft was being recorded and uploaded to my server in real time. Satisfied, Nicole returned the card to my wallet, left the room with a casual expression, and soon rejoined the party as if nothing had happened. A few minutes later, she was back among my friends, champagne in hand, all smiles. Beneath that smile, though, lay a swirling hunger and the evidence of her crime, now preserved in my records. What she didn't know yet was that the debit card information she so eagerly stole was a special gift I had prepared just for her. That card wasn't just any debit card. In her greedy hands, it was the key to a door that would open only onto her own destruction. After the party ended and the last guest had left, I sat alone on the living room sofa. The fading bubbles in my champagne glass felt like the ghosts of the night's festivities. Nicole had left too, still wearing that self-satisfied smile. In her bag, her phone, now holding photos of my debit card, rested like a ticking time bomb. That night, I gave her one final chance. If she only stole the information but never used it, her crime would remain an attempt. But the moment she used those details for her own gain, it would be undeniable proof of her intent. I put the wallet back on my dresser and simply waited. It was like dropping a line into the depths and waiting for a giant fish to bite. All it took was patience. Everything was in place. All that remained was for the lead actor to take the stage and, by her own choice, raise the curtain on this grand tragedy. The day after my birthday party, New York buzzed with its usual noise and energy. But in my world, everything was hushed the calm before the storm. I went to my office in Manhattan as usual and worked on a client's security infrastructure report. On the surface, it was just another ordinary day. But at 2:15 p.m., the moment finally arrived. I was just brewing coffee for a midday caffeine fix when my phone vibrated once quietly, but with a sharp edge. I set my mug on the desk and picked up my phone. A simple notification glowed on the screen. Alert, new transaction detected. I felt my heart beat a little faster, but my expression didn't change. I tapped the notification and opened my monitoring dashboard. The transaction log, empty moments before, now showed its first entry. A purchase of $9,000 under Nicole's name. Her first move was bolder and costlier than I had imagined. Instead of testing the waters with groceries or small online orders, she'd gone straight for a luxury watch. This clearly shows the extent of her desire and just how calculated she is. The purchase location, the Rolex boutique on Fifth Avenue. The most glamorous street in the world, and the highest-end shop you could find. I sat back and took a slow sip of coffee, steady and calm, already planning my next step to lock down the evidence. Nicole, I imagine, was now riding a wave of euphoria, a beautiful green Rolex box in hand, completely unaware she had just crossed a line she could never return from. Now came the waiting phase. All I had to do was wait for her to come flaunt her stolen prize in front of me. That would be the signal that this experiment was ready to move to its next stage. And so I waited, quietly. In my world, digital evidence always speaks louder than anything else. 2 days after the Rolex purchase was recorded, I finally received a message from Nicole. "Hey Kelly, how are you? Want to grab coffee in Soho after work tomorrow? I have a present for you. I couldn't give it to you on your birthday." I replied right away, "Sure, I'd love to," and set up the meeting at the cafe she suggested. The next day, Wednesday at 6 p.m., I arrived at the Soho cafe 5 minutes early. The place was bustling with after-work crowds and tourists. I took a seat by the window, watching the street where I expected Nicole to appear. Soon enough, I spotted her crossing the street, walking with all the confidence of a runway model. a new coat, an expensive-looking leather bag. But what stood out most was the platinum and steel sparkle on her left wrist, glinting in the evening light funded by my money. She came in, found me, and flashed a dazzling smile. It was nothing like the innocent grins we used to share as kids. Instead, it was a calculated look, expecting envy from everyone around her. "Kelly, did you wait long?" She said this as she took the seat across from me, casually setting her left hand holding her coffee cup on the table, making sure it was in full view. It was all for show. Her eyes flicked repeatedly between me and the watch, just waiting to see my reaction. She was clearly anticipating the moment I would notice the watch, act surprised, and most of all look jealous. But I didn't give her the satisfaction. I just said quietly, "You look well. That's all that matters." We chatted about work, mutual friends, all the usual small talk. But Nicole's attention was fixated on her left wrist. Every so often, she'd check the time or tuck her hair behind her ear, making sure the watch caught the light in my eye. I watched her little performance calmly, almost amused by how desperate it was. Then, in a moment of silence, she couldn't hold back any longer. "Hey, check this out, what do you think?" She held out her wrist, showing off the Rolex. The diamond markers glittered under the cafe lights. "It's beautiful. A day chest, right?" "Very nice," I replied in an even tone. She seemed a little thrown by my lack of excitement, but quickly recovered and launched into her practice story. "I know, right? I've been doing some online consulting on the side and it's gone really well. I got a huge bonus, so I decided to treat myself. Just went for it. Side business. A bonus." Each word was clearly a pre-planned lie. Nicole was presenting something she'd stolen with someone else's money as a badge of her own success. I just listened silently, letting her dig herself deeper with every sentence. Once she finished, I spoke up quietly but pointedly. "That's amazing, Nicole. I'm actually interested in your business, too. I mean, that watch must have cost, what, $9,000? That's a significant chunk of my yearly salary. When did you start earning that kind of money?" For just a second, her face tightened. She hadn't expected me to know the price. But she quickly covered her surprise with her usual sneer. "Guess I'm just talented. Not everyone's cut out to spend all day staring at a computer screen in a dark office doing boring work like you." It was a familiar insult. But today, those words were about to come back to haunt her. "Boring work, huh?" I set down my coffee cup. "Nicole, how much do you actually know about what I do?" "Huh? What's with the sudden questions? You work in like cyber whatever, right? Guarding company computers? Sounds dull to me." "Let me fill you in," I said, sitting up straight and looking her dead in the eye. "My field is threat intelligence and digital forensics. In simple terms, I analyze and track the traces left by hackers and cybercriminals online and uncover their identities. My clients include Fortune 500 companies and sometimes government agencies." For the first time, I saw genuine confusion cross Nicole's face. "What are you talking about? That can't be true." "It's not bragging, it's just a fact." I slid my phone across the table toward her. "And that debit card you stole? It wasn't just my payroll account. I designed it specifically for this day, a custom honeypot device. It's a decoy system used to lure in and catch cybercriminals." "Huh? Honeypot?" It was clear she'd never heard the term before. Confusion twisted across her face. "From the moment you snuck into my bedroom and photographed my card information, everything has been recorded. When you use that info at the Rolex store, the transaction time, amount, and precise GPS location were all logged to my server down to the millisecond. All of it right here." I tapped my phone, showing her the footage of her theft, the transaction log, and a red pin on the map. Nicole stared at the flawless digital evidence in disbelief. I could see the color draining from her face. But after a few seconds of silence, what appeared wasn't remorse, but defiance. Her fear turned to anger. "So what?" she snapped. "Yeah, I bought it with your card, so what? You have plenty of money. You don't even have to struggle like I do. If that's how you feel, then it's only fair for you to pay me back with all that desperation. $9,000, transfer it to my account right now. If you do, I won't call the police this time. That was her final chance. But she just scoffed. Pay you back. Don't be ridiculous. She let out a harsh, mocking laugh. Sorry, but I've got like $3 left in my account. And honestly, that kind of money means nothing to you. You've got no friends, you work all the time, just let your little sister have it. That sneer, those words. That was the final proof I'd been waiting for. I nodded slowly and spoke to her calm and clear. I see. So that's your answer, Nicole, those words of contempt. I picked up my phone and showed her the screen. A record of a single-cent file was displayed. Unfortunately, you've just lost your chance to pay me back or to insult me again. There's a special rule programmed into that card, one you didn't know about. What is that supposed to mean? If any single transaction exceeds $8,000, the system automatically sends all the collected evidence to a certain place. That's the rule. I paused for a moment before delivering the final sentence. That place is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN for short. The moment you heard approved at the Rolex boutique, your crime was automatically reported to the federal government database. Your purchase itself triggered a tip-off to the FBI. You're lying, she managed to choke out. There's no way you can't actually do that. I can. That's my job. I said it flatly. The job you always mocked me staring at a computer all day is exactly what made this possible. And then I gave her a genuine smile, from the bottom of my heart. It was all a trap, Nicole. You proved your own stupidity with your own hands. Thanks for giving me perfect evidence. It was at that moment that the cafe door swung open, and two sharply dressed, broad-shouldered agents headed straight for our table. Small gold badges gleamed on their jacket lapels. The cafe's lively buzz evaporated, replaced by a stunned silence. One man stopped next to Nicole and spoke quietly but authoritatively. Nicole Brown? FBI. You're under arrest for credit card fraud and related federal offenses. Nicole's face was pure despair. She looked at me, pleading for help, but I simply watched the scene unfold in silence. The other agent, a woman, took hold of Nicole's left arm and removed the Rolex she'd been so proud to wear. She dropped it into a clear evidence bag as if it were something filthy. This will be seized as criminal proceeds. Handcuffed and being led away, Nicole kept shouting something, but her words didn't reach me anymore. I left enough cash on the table to cover our coffee, then slipped out of the cafe unnoticed. If she'd apologized, if she'd shown any willingness to make things right, I might have reconsidered sending the report to the federal authorities. But she chose the worst possible path. Outside, the air felt impossibly clear. The seasons had changed. The street trees of New York were painted red and yellow in the crisp autumn air. Since that day, my life has been surprisingly peaceful. I threw myself into work. On weekends, I wandered through art museums. It was the very life Nicole once mocked as boring, but it was genuinely mine. One day, my phone rang. It was Erica, and her voice was clear and determined, nothing like the worn-out tone she'd used before. Kelly, do you have a minute? Yes, of course. It's about Nicole. We've made a decision. She went on to explain that she'd talked with several other friends who had lent Nicole money. Together, they'd decided to hire a lawyer. We're going to file a civil suit to recover the loans. It's not about the amount. We just feel that after all her lies and betrayal, we can't let it go. We need to make a stand. I see, I answered quietly. I wasn't surprised. It felt inevitable, as obvious as a system flagging a warning at the first sign of trouble. We know she can't pay right now, but for us, this is about closure, and honestly, maybe it's for her too. I want her to face in court the reality of how much her actions have hurt people and what those consequences really mean. There was a resolve in Erica's voice I'd never heard before. The gentle friend who once cried over Nicole's vanity was gone. I support your decision, Erica. If there's anything I can do, let me know. Thank you, Kelly. That means a lot. After I hung up, I stared out the window. The digital trap I'd built had pushed Nicole to a legal reckoning. Now, the very relationships she'd trampled were moving to hold her accountable. A few weeks later, a letter arrived in my mailbox. The return address bore a prison stamp. It was from Nicole. I sat on my living room sofa, opened the envelope, and read the carefully written, trembling handwriting inside. Dear Kelly, how are you? I don't know if you'll even read this. I've been getting counseling here, and for the first time, I realize I have an illness shopping addiction. I felt anxious if I wasn't armored in designer brands, and the only way I could feel good about myself was to look down on others. No words can ever make up for what I did to you. I'm truly sorry. If you hadn't set that trap, I probably would have kept hurting people, kept going until I destroyed myself. The day I was arrested, I hated you with every fiber of my being. But now, I think that was the first and only real help you ever gave me. Now I'm facing myself, every day. When I get out, I'll do whatever it takes to pay you back and to repay all the friends I borrowed from. Maybe if I can really change. The letter ended there. This was the end of a revenge story. And maybe, just maybe, the start of something new. I opened my laptop and typed into the search bar, shopping addiction family support. I sat there, staring at the search results, unable to even scroll. My fingers felt as cold as when I'm tracing a hacker's tracks through a client's system. But this time, I wasn't facing some faceless adversary. I was confronting the darkness in my own sister's heart. Nicole's letter remained on the table. Maybe that was the first and only real help you ever gave me. That single line put a small, but unmistakable, crack in the fortress of perfect revenge I'd built. I'd believed my actions were justice. To catch those who broke the law, who deceived others, using digital evidence. That was order, that was my professional pride. But the stains in the ink of her letter forced me to see what I'd refused to face. Not just the crime, but my sister's illness, her desperate, silent plea for help. Did I really want to save her? Or did I just want the satisfaction of seeing the sister who always looked down on me brought low before the law? That loop of self-doubt consumed my thoughts. And then I made a decision. The prison visiting room was more sterile and bright than I'd expected. Nicole sat quietly on the other side of a thick acrylic panel, looking frailer than I remembered. Maybe it was the prison uniform. Without the designer brands or her practiced smile, she looked like a stranger. You came, she whispered, unable to meet my eyes. I read your letter, I said, unable to say anything I'd rehearsed, just the plain truth. I thought you'd tear it up, after all those awful things I said to you. I've always been jealous of you, Kelly. You have real talent. You built your life on your own. Compared to you, all I ever did was fake it, cover it up with lies. It hurt so much, all I could do was escape into shopping. Pathetic, right? There was no arrogance left in her self-deprecating smile. You always called my work boring, said I just sat in front of a computer all day, I said quietly. I'm sorry. That boring work is what stopped you. Funny, isn't it? Nicole looked up at me, startled, and for the first time met my eyes directly. I really mean it. If those FBI agents hadn't shown up at the cafe that day, if you hadn't stopped me, who knows what I would have done. I would have kept going until it got even worse. Really, thank you. Tears ran down her cheeks. Seeing those tears, something inside me finally broke open. All the logic behind my revenge, my professional pride, everything was washed away. What remained was nothing but the simple fact that I was a sister, sitting across from my wounded little sister. I did some research about addiction, I said, gently touching the acrylic partition between us. If it's an illness, there are ways to treat it. You don't have to face this alone. The buzzer sounded, cold and final, signaling the end of our visit. Nicole stood and bowed her head deeply, so deeply. Kelly, someday when I get out and I'm really able to stand on my own, then. Yes, I interrupted, clear and firm. When that day comes, let's go out together again. This time to a real cafe. Just the two of us for coffee. 6 months later, I stood alone outside the heavy gates of the prison. Soon, the gates opened and a woman stepped out. No expensive coat, no leather bag. Nicole wore nothing but simple jeans and a sweater, plain but clean. She looked a little thinner, but her face was surprisingly peaceful. She spotted me, paused, and then gave a shy, uncertain smile. It reminded me of how she used to smile when we were kids before either of us knew anything about the world. We walked toward each other instinctively without thinking. Welcome back, Nicole. I'm back, Kelly. No one knows what lies ahead for us. The lost time, the mistakes we made, none of that can ever be erased. But now, for the first time, we're standing side by side, facing the same future. Above us, the New York sky stretched endlessly clear and blue. Without another word, the two of us quietly began to walk down this new path together.